I look at the situation, people love their entitlements. 2/3 of the American budget every year constitutes entitlement spending, and it's mandatory. It is not discretionary spending. Do you ever see a future where there's a restructuring of entitlements, or are we going to go the way of Europe and basically we'll have an economic meltdown and then we'll have to take austerity measures?
Well, Medicare goes insolvent in 2026 and Social Security goes insolvent in 2034. I really hope we deal with it before then. Because here's what that means. When Social Security, for instance, goes insolvent, that means that benefits automatically get cut. That's what happens according to current law. Well, what's instead going to happen, because we're not actually going to cut benefits to seniors who are relying on those things? Well, they're going to tax us. They're going to tax my generation, your generation, and they're going to tax us pretty heavily. And we're going to be told that it'll be fine for a little while, then they're going to have to tax us more. Okay? This is a completely unsustainable program. Now, but the question is, are we going to fix it? Well, I'd like to. I'm going to keep fighting to fix it. Democrats have no interest in fixing it. That's a real problem. We fundamentally disagree on why there's a debt. And that's a real problem. We fundamentally disagree on the facts, and that's what I get out of these budget hearings. Democrats honestly believe that history began 2 years ago with President Trump, and history began with the tax cuts. And they will actually argue that the reason we have bad deficits is because of these tax cuts. Okay, well, let's look at the numbers on this. Without the tax cuts, in about 10 years, we'd have around $32 trillion in debt. With the tax cuts, we have about $33 trillion in debt. Those are not causing the debt. I mean, this is real simple numerical, some numerical evidence that we can look at to prove that. But they believe it, and they'll hammer that, and they'll hammer that. And we'll say, listen, 70% of spending is mandatory spending. That's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on the debt, some other entitlement programs as well. Things we can't control, things we refuse to vote on, and that's a real problem. I mean, that's the issue. Okay, how can we get to a point where we actually vote on these programs? Because the thing we fight about constantly every year, and again, going back to like what we're held accountable for by conservative groups, is 30% of the budget. That's we're fighting, and it's worth fighting over. Don't get me wrong. But that's not what's causing our future $33 trillion debt. It's mandatory spending, it's increasing healthcare costs, and it's a completely unsustainable Social Security system.